Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby.
Hello and welcome to Movies vs. Capitalism, an anti-capitalist movie podcast. I'm Frank.
And I'm Rivka.
And Riv, it's been a minute. We were just saying before we started recording, it's been a whole 4 weeks since we last recorded an A-Block because we didn't do one for our last week's bonus episode, Reds, with Harvey K. So it's good to see you.
Good to see you. I know feels like years, as I was telling Frank.
Yes, because we used to see each other weekly, and now that we're releasing every other week, it's a little bit limited. And you've got your literal hands full with a new baby. So yeah. How's the fam doing?
Fam's great. It is strange how time has totally been reconstructed for me. So I'm just always like, what day is it? Where's my phone?
Sure.
Is it still warm out? I'm so confused about all the things, but which I guess makes sense. I mean, he just got here and I'm sure time is he doesn't even understand time. So I'm getting a little piece of that. It's trippy. It's trippy over here.
Do you feel like a lot of that is attributed to, sleeping schedules and being up at odd hours, awake early, getting up in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, probably sleeping schedule. I'm sure some of that. He started sleeping a little bit more. And then I got to say, I hope this lasts, but he does this awesome thing where he'll wake up at 6. But then, and usually that's when I hand him to Tommy. I'm like, I was doing the night feedings, and Tommy will take him for an hour. And then he has a nap from 7 to 11 or 7 to 10. It's
peak hours.
Peak. It is. So I feel like that. And I do that with him. I'm like, I'll cover this. I got it. We'll take a nap together. So he just
I'll
comes
take this
back.
shift.
Yeah, he just comes back to mom. Feed him on the breast a little, we fall asleep, and then we both wake up when you wake up from one of those naps where you're kind of you're fucked up. You're just like, what the fuck just happened? Why is it light out? Where am I?
Yeah, you're like, what day is it? What time is it?
Yeah, we both wake up. He'll wake up, kind of look at me, smile, and then immediately cry. And I'm like, I get it. We're like, what? Where are we? But it's, I love it.
I'm so disoriented.
It's great. So we love that. But I don't know. Maybe I think it's also just getting on his wavelength. It's really fun to be seeing life through his eyes, which truly is, time is not yet constructed for him fully. He's starting to get his circadian rhythm on board, but even that doesn't exist.
Sure.
So I'm kind of trying to get in what do you see, buddy?
Oh man, I'm excited to come and visit and see him again. So let's get into it. We had one news story we wanted to talk about before we get to our movie conversation. The big entertainment news story that intersects pretty hard with politics. The cancellation, pretty hardcore. The cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
An actual cancellation, not he was
yeah.
quote unquote canceled.
Yeah.
This really was a cancellation.
Yeah, not a cancel culture cancellation, and a full a TV show was canceled. So it was announced a few weeks ago that CBS is canceling The Late Show, not just getting rid of Colbert as the host, but canceling The Late Show in its entirety. The Late Show, which has been running for, 20, 30 years, is a late night institution. I mean, I don't feel super attached or beholden to late night shows as institutions, but it was one.
Certainly a liberal institution for sure.
For sure.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Especially since Jimmy Fallon's over there just doing juggling water balloons or whatever the shit that he does, his goofy ass bullshit.
You're like, what the fuck is he doing over there? Thank God I don't know. I don't ever want to know.
I don't know. He's dressing up as a homeless person and then doing a surprise concert with Questlove in the subway station. I don't who fucking cares? Whatever the fuck he's doing. The most useless person in entertainment. Anyway, Stephen Colbert, yes, has definitely taken up the mantle, especially in the last several years, and especially under the Trump administration, of being the liberal late night political standard bearer. So CBS canceled the show, citing financial reasons. But there's been a lot of speculation as to why they actually canceled the show. And a lot of people are saying, probably rightly so, that it was a politically motivated business and TV decision for a few reasons. One, CBS was just in a lawsuit and settled with Donald Trump over the Kamala Harris interview. They paid the Trump like $16 million or some shit just to settle out of court, just to appease him and not have to get dragged out into like, you know, a trial or whatever. Colbert himself has come under fire from Trump and the Trump administration, and the parent company, Paramount Global, and its CEO, I think it's Bob Bakish or whatever. Like, you know, very like the higher you get up in these multinational media conglomerates, these CEOs don't give a fuck about liberal values, democracy, keeping these institutions alive. They're closer to a Trump than they are to a Stephen Colbert. So the last big part is Paramount Global is pursuing a merger with Skydance Media that is in front of the FTC right now to get that merger approved. So a lot of people are speculating that this cancellation was basically an appeasement to Donald Trump to say like, hey, look, we settled with you. We're getting rid of this guy. Why don't you just treat us nicely now and like let this merger go through? And like we literally gave you a lamb to the slaughter and destroyed a late night institution by way of doing so. So like, is this enough? Is this enough? And I don't know, Riv, do you think appeasing fascists is ever a good idea? Does it ever actually?
It works. It really works.
As history
it's like
has
the
taught us.
ultimate. It's like the ultimate bootlicking, and you're like, that boot is just gonna come and smash you down.
Yeah, because the boot's like, oh, you just licked it once. Like, I bet you'll lick it again.
Yeah,
and I'll bet you lick it harder. Yeah.
Fuck. Dark times. It chilling, to be honest. I mean, both Tommy and I were like, yeah, it's fucking chilling.
It is. I mean, I've been feeling a lot of different ways about it. Apparently, like Colbert was one of the higher rated of the late night hosts. So I guess in terms of the actual financials, like his show was doing fine, making money.
Although I think CBS is like claiming it was a fine, whatever there.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe ultimately it does make more financial sense for them because as we've talked about on this podcast, like we live in the age where media companies are like, hey, you know what? I know we already spent like $50 million making this whole movie, but it's actually better for us if we just put it in a dark box and no one ever sees it. And we say it's a tax write-off. That's actually better for us. So I have no fucking idea. Maybe there's some financial gymnastics that actually make it make sense for this. I've been feeling conflicted because I used to love Stephen Colbert back when he was doing the Colbert Report. I thought he was an unbelievable satirist. And since he made the jump to being the host of The Late Show, I just have not really been buying what he's been selling. I've sort of been like, I don't know if he's gotten more moderate over time or if I have gone more left, but there's been a number of instances where I'm like, oh, I don't really vibe with you anymore. And then
I think the only thing I've seen of him recently was the questioning of Mamdani. Like, right? Like his line of questioning was that what you were going to head towards? Yeah.
That was, yes. And then it like culminated like a month ago. We had Zohran Mamdani and Brad Lander on together, but like really felt the need to like drill down on Zohran over
Israel
and like globalize the Intifada, and just like really chose to take a very like hardline tack in what should have been like a pretty softball interview, especially for the fucking Late Show. And it just was kind of like showed his real colors, where I was like, oh, you're part of this whole like liberal media class that is like, you're like New York Times adjacent, you're like you're doing the lifting to try to smear this guy. And I was honestly, after that, I was like, I don't fuck with Stephen Colbert anymore.
Yeah.
But this is still a bummer, especially if it is his cancellation, especially if it is happening for these more politically motivated reasons.
Yeah, chilling in the sense that like it's just as we've been seeing, but is that bold fascist phase of like coming for, like you said, this neoliberal media class so boldly. Not a small show. I find it to be pretty horrifying.
Yeah, pretty horrifying as like a potential harbinger for the way that, I mean, we've seen so many different giant corporations capitulate to the Trump administration. We've seen universities capitulate to the Trump administration. Not surprising to see media companies doing the same thing. So, taken as a whole with all the other corporate capitulation or even straight up collusion with the Trump administration, collaboration, it's pretty fucking scary. Although the last thing I will say real quickly is that I've seen a lot of people, a lot of friends of ours on my social media timelines getting real up in arms about this Colbert cancellation. I don't think I've seen them say a single fucking thing about Gaza in the last 2 years.
Ugh.
So there is just want to point that there is a very shitty, whatever the opposite of a Venn diagram is, where it's like liberal enough to care about Colbert getting canceled, but not progressive or, I don't know, empathetic enough or anti-Zionist enough to recognize and call out the fucking US-backed genocide that's been happening for 2 years, almost 2 years.
Yeah, no, I've been kind of taking a break from social media. And so that kind of stuff is enraging.
Yeah. I mean, you have the opposite. You have the opposite of social media right now. You have a newborn baby.
A newborn who I'm like, don't look at that screen. Oh God. And guess what? Babies love screens. They'll find them anywhere they are. I'm like, I didn't even see that screen on. like I can't see in front of my face, but I can see that screen two blocks away. I'm like,
is that he's going to start walking. He's going to be at the oven door, just pressing on the glass.
Yeah. And I would like to put my head in here, please. Yeah. No, it's important to be away because it is amazing how quickly one can lose their sanity on there. And I have little sanity to lose at this point.
Oh, definitely. And you're right. And as we all should from time to time need to unplug, especially from social media, reading the news, understanding what's happening, one thing. Social media literally built algorithmically to make us go crazy. So
yeah,
I support that.
But I will say to that end, I don't know, it's been really exciting to take the things I would want to say on there or just a reminder of why community and community organizing is so important. I was part of, everyone's heard on this podcast me talk about, I think it was years ago at this point that I read Das Kapital in a group, not alone. And that group was specifically a group of theater workers. And we had been we'd done other reading past that. And then this past summer, we had made an effort to where now it's time to put our study into praxis. And our intention was to raise the fighting spirit of the working class, particularly for theater workers. So it was just so fascinating to, I'll just say quickly, create a piece of art with a very specific political intention with a group of theater workers where we had all studied together. So we had built this shared political understanding, shared political values. They were Marxist values, but it was just it was so exciting to create art from that space because I've certainly created art from a place where you think, you're we're here, there's political messaging here, we're kind of on the same page with our values and the moral political message of this work. And then you realize that after the show ends or while you're in the process, you're like, fuck, we couldn't be more misaligned in those pursuits because we actually don't have a shared political understanding. And so often in art, we talk about the feelings and the values and what, aiming towards some kind of, I guess we don't say political often, but we'll kind of, I feel hide the idea of politics under what do you want your audience to leave feeling changed about or affected about, or that idea of catharsis. And so often, it's disappointing because you're we don't have a shared, we actually are not using political terms or talking about politics. And this was the total opposite. And so last night and the night before we had our showing, Frank signed up, but can I share this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Frank signed up, and Frank is so when you signed up, we were really intentional about the audience too, that because we were doing it specifically for theater workers, because we had an organizing effort and a teach-in about capitalism at the end. We wanted a very specific niche community, which was also a cool organizing tactic, I thought, for the arts. When Frank signed up, I was like, Frank's still a theater worker, but Frank was like, no, I'm not, and didn't check the box. And so couldn't get a ticket. But I thought I was like, yeah, Frank's very earnest. I was like, Frank, just lie.
No, I appreciate that. I'm bummed that I didn't get to see it, but after you explained what the intention and strategy was behind the piece, I was like, oh no, it's better that I give up my seat to someone who maybe has not engaged with these ideas before.
And it was cool. It was like we had Karl Marx got in a wrestling ring against the managerial class. The audience was shouting bootlicker. Like, it was really, really cool to see political art in action and be involved with it. And Kate Eastman played Marx, who was been a guest on this podcast. Chris Myers was a guest. We have a lot of them. Jesse J. Hoon was there. It was a very cool event. But I will say, because I guess I started this off of the feelings of like being on social media and just that the chilling vibes. If you're feeling chilled, like any kind of participation in that, for me, it's the arts. But like that, I just left feeling filled and truly like feeling optimistic. Just always a reminder of like, we are an international working class. We literally have the power in numbers, as their intention is to scare us with this kind of shit. Like, you know, to make us feel like the Daily Show and the Stephen Colberts are the epitome of power in media and power in the arts. And it's to be reminded that that's not necessarily does not have to be true. It's not true. It's the way we give up our power, but like we have the power in media and the arts if we want it, because we have the numbers as the working class.
Yes, it's not that they're not the be all end all. And you're right. Doing like any sort of community engagement, community organizing, just being with community, it's always leaves me feeling so grounded, centered, and optimistic, like you said. So I'm stoked for you guys. Congrats.
Thanks.
All right, well, we went a little bit long, so let's get to this movie conversation. This one has been sitting on the shelf for quite a while, and apologies to our wonderful guest, Andy Boyd. This was a really wonderful conversation. It just, because of the schedule, because of baby, everything, it just was sitting around for a while, but here it is coming, our conversation about Hail Caesar. But first, just want to remind our audience that we do not sell ads on this show. We rely on community support to keep the show going. So if you'd like to do that, you can subscribe to our Patreon.
That's right. For just $5 a month, which just seems like littler and littler as we move forward. Just $5 a month. You get access to new bonus episodes and our entire back catalog. Our Patreon link is in the episode description in your podcast player or at mvcpod.com. And please make sure to rate, review, subscribe to this podcast on your podcast player so you don't miss new episodes.
Also, a reminder that we donate our ad space. So if you are part of a leftist or progressive organization and you want to run an ad on this show, just shoot us an email at moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
All right. We are going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with our guest, Andy Boyd, to discuss Hail Caesar.
What's up, everyone? I've got a fantastic mutual aid organization I want to tell you about. Mutual Aid Distribution Richmond, Virginia. MADRVA is a collective which bloomed during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, distributing food, PPE, hygiene products, and other necessities straight to the homes of community members. The collective has since grown and evolved. They're now offering mini grants and political education to their community and partner with other leftist and grassroots organizations across the city to create an intricate web of care for Richmond City. MADRVA's newest project is the Meadowbridge Community Market, a free COVID-conscious grocery store combating food apartheid in Richmond's North Side. Through the store, MADRVA helps to feed roughly 200 families every Saturday. To help them purchase the building that they run the market out of, you can visit givebutter.com/buymcm. That's givebutter.com/buymcm. You can also follow them and check out their past work on Instagram at MAD_RVA. Today, we are very excited to be joined by Andy Boyd. Andy is a playwright based in Brooklyn, New York. Her plays include 3 Scenes in the Life of a Trotskyist, the Tank Corps production, Occupy Prescott, Theater in Asylum at Jalopy Theater, published by No Passport Press, and The Trade Federation, or Let's Explore Globalization Through the Star Wars Prequels, produced by IRT and Otherworld Theater, published by No Passport Press. Andy is a member of the theater band Friend of Friend, whose show Room, Room, Room in the Many Mansions of Eternal Glory for Thee and for Everyone has been performed at University Settlement, The Brick, Joe's Pub, and Here Art Center. Andy, welcome to Movies versus Capitalism.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Hearing you read my bio really made me realize I think I might suck at titles. I think those are all too long.
Oh, that's so funny. I had the opposite reaction. I was like, I love these titles.
Well, great. I'm a genius.
I loved the titles as well. I was having a hard time differentiating between the titles and who produced them. I also realized that I was like, oh, I need to get better at saying words sometimes, or maybe look these things over ahead of time.
Send them back to conservatory, folks.
Oh, God, I really do. I really need to go back to a conservatory program
of the tongue,
at this point in my life.
the teeth and the lips.
But Andy, so you reached out to us about coming on the pod. Your pitch was like, hey, I'm a leftist playwright. I would love to be on your podcast. And we were like, hell yeah.
Yeah, short and sweet.
A short and sweet pitch is the perfect the Venn diagram of exactly what we like to talk about on this podcast. You sent me one of your plays, The Trade Federation, or Let's Explore Globalization Through the Star Wars Prequels, and I read about half of it. I'm still excited to finish it, but I was really, as a Star Wars fan, I was extremely tickled by it. Riv, it's basically like the Trade Federation is like this. Was this economic force in the Star Wars prequels that a lot of Star Wars fans really hated, and Andy's play is basically like a take on, I don't know, the indigenous people of Naboo, led by Princess Amidala, standing up to this giant, basically like this trade mafia, and trying to maintain the collective ownership over the means and resources of the planet of Naboo. And I was like, this is fucking great. So. Andy, I'd love to learn more about how you got into this work.
That's hilarious.
So that play in particular, so like the conceit is sort of like, I am pitching a Star Wars movie to George Lucas, and my Star Wars movie is like sort of the prequel to the prequels, and it's all about the Trade Federation as an elaborate metaphor / allegory for the International Monetary Fund. So, that that's kind sense. Of the, like, if I have one specific target, they're the ones, those nasty guys over there. So, I don't know, like, I've always loved the Star Wars movies, and I think I was reading like an article in the AV Club or something, and they were like, they made some joke about how dumb it was that Episode 1 was so much about the kind of economic structures of Star Wars. And I sort of thought, well, that actually sounds great to me. I wonder if Episode 1's better than I remembered. And I went back and it's not, but it made me think like, oh, if I wrote that, it would be something I would like. So that's kind of where that idea started from. But it's kind of just this idea of like, kind of what you do on the podcast, kind of trying to read this like, hegemonic pop culture artifact as in some ways a leftist critique, or to like find the leftist critique within it. Which I also think is like sort of there in George Lucas. I think he's like a pretty kind of like, I don't know if he's a leftist, but he's like I think he's a sort of pretty liberal guy. He funded a movie in the 80s that was like about the Sandinistas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think it's called Latino, which is a weird title for that. But yeah, he was like, supportive of the Latin American Solidarity movement.
I knew that he had, like, I knew that he has like somewhat left politics, because I know that like the original Star Wars, he was pulling a lot from what was happening like in Vietnam.
Yeah. And the rebels were originally supposed to be like a metaphor, or like were inspired by the Viet Cong, and the Empire is obviously the US. And later, like Reagan kind of uses Star Wars as a metaphor for the Soviet Union, but he's wrong. That's a
right.
That's a reading that is not supported by the text, I'll say.
Well, it's like, how the right took over the Matrix. So yeah,
right.
It'll happen.
Right wingers famously good with art and understanding it.
Yeah, that's why they have to steal ours, because they're so good at it. They just need all of it that they can possibly get their hands on. They love the stuff. But I basically became convinced that like Episode 1 actually was about globalization, and that like all these connections I was finding are real. So it was like a kind of joke at first, and somewhere along the way it stopped being a joke to me. And I actually do sort of think that the like political context of the anti-globalization movement in the 90s is actually pretty directly reflected in Episode 1. Like the fact that like you have the Gungans, who are this like indigenous resistance group, I don't think is like a coincidence in a decade where like the Zapatistas were in the news every week. I think that actually there is a connection there. And the idea of like these big shadowy, you know, economic elites like secretly pulling the levers of everything. Like there's obviously right and left wing versions of that type of thinking, but like that's very much what the Trade Federation is in those movies. The only thing I don't like about it is that like the Trade Federation is actually secretly working for the Sith. And I think it'd be better if the Trade Federation were just this like boring bureaucratic capitalist organization that was just being evil because they were forced to by the logic of the market. I think that would have been a cooler thing for them to do.
Agreed.
You know, it's like, who's really in charge of the big companies? It's like, well, I don't know, like the CEO and the stockholders. Like, I don't think there's like a real mystery there. So I think they whiff a little bit on that. But I do think that there is a connection between that movie and the kind of politics around that same time. I mean, it came out in 1999. You know, it's like the sort of height of this era.
So I'm so excited to talk about the movie you did choose. But before we do, Andy, I would love to know, the short version. But like, have you always had this leftist lens through which you saw the world and therefore created your art? Was there a turning point for you? What was your political artistic journey like?
Yeah, sure. So I think I've always been like pretty left leaning. Like my parents were pretty liberal, and like, you know, I remember I went to like a John Kerry rally where Garrison Keillor opened for him in 2004. You know, like that kind of like, you know, corny liberal stuff. And then like in high school, I, you know, read Howard Zinn and became a socialist. And then, but I didn't really know how to like connect that to my art. I was like in punk bands and doing like theater and at a performing arts high school in Arizona. And then I saw a touring production by El Teatro Campesino, which is like a great California-based radical theater group. And it really made me like excited about that type of work, but also like excited about becoming politically involved. And like, it's one of those plays where like it ends with the cast like running into the audience and like leading you and like a chanting one of their slogans. And, you know, there's like this great like music swelling, and it just it made being politically engaged seem like really exciting and meaningful and like cool and fun. And so that kind of led pretty directly to me getting involved in like immigrant solidarity protests that were happening when I was in high school. And then, I don't know, when I went to college and wrote plays there, I always, like, not all of my plays are political, but like a good number of them were written from like a specific sort of political or satirical point of view. Sometimes you'll hear people claim that like theater can't change people's minds, or like theater can't have like a political effect or something like that. I just like I never know why people think that, because I think theater has like had such a profound effect on how I think about the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I don't think I'm like unique. I don't think I'm special. I think like the fact that like I, you know, saw Angels in America when I was 16, like formed me politically and like drew connections that were not being drawn elsewhere in the culture. And like, you know, I don't know. I think that's important. And obviously like, you know, it's easy to wonder, does doing a show at the Brick to 50 people really matter? But it's like, well, I don't know. I would rather do my shows for more people, but like that's not an option at this point in my career. So I'm like having the effect that I can, you know?
Absolutely.
Yes, and theater, film, art at its absolute best has the power to, if not change people's minds, at the very least influence people's minds. You know, and I think I think doing any kind of theater stage, especially staging any kind of theater in New York right now, like on a smaller scale, that is like such an undertaking, and that is like no small potatoes whatsoever. And getting 50 people into a room to watch something that you made, that's fucking amazing. Yeah. So congratulations.
Yeah, I'm theater pilled big time. I think it's great. Love to go see a play.
I love theater pilled. All right. Well, the film we're talking about today is not so, it's definitely old Hollywood.
Yes.
Which, you know, has a lot of theater resonance. It feels theater, like a theater pilled film, but let's get into it. The movie you chose for us to discuss is Hail Caesar from 2016. This is a picture written, produced, edited, and directed by the brothers Joel and Ethan Coen, starring Josh Brolin, George Clooney, Alden Ehrenreich,
Han Solo himself,
Really?
Well, in the new young Han Solo, yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense because
Mhm.
I was like, this young lad should act more. He's great. When I was watching, turns out he's doing just fine. Okay,
They should put him in more stuff.
yeah. Rafe Fiennes, Jonah Hill, Scarlett Johansson, Frances McDormand, of course, Tilda Swinton, and Channing Tatum with Michael Gambon as the narrator. The budget for this movie was $22 million. The box office for this film was $63.6 million. And a brief synopsis. Hollywood fixer Eddie Mannix, played by Josh Brolin, scrambles to resolve a series of crises, including the kidnapping of movie star Baird Whitlock, played by George Clooney, who's held by a group of communist screenwriters. As Mannix navigates the chaotic situation, he must also deal with a scandal involving a starlet and his own internal struggle about a potential job offer from a rival studio.
A little bit of historical context for when this film was released. Released on February 5th, 2016. The other movie we have covered from this year is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So what's going on in 2016? Well, you might remember Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, defeating former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. But that was at the end of the year. What else happened? Republicans reelected Mitch McConnell as the Senate Majority Leader. Democrats selected Chuck Schumer as the Senate Minority Leader. Americans paid about $15 billion in bank overdraft fees. The average American household carried around $16,061 in credit card debt. Pokemon Go became the fastest growing mobile app in history. And what a time. We've talked about it many times on this podcast. What a time that was, Pokemon Go. And for the first time, streaming services generated more revenue for the music industry than album and single sales. Oh, damn. Wow. Also, Uptown Funk won the Grammy for Record of the Year at the 58th Grammy Awards. That really if the Trump election doesn't put you back into where you were, Uptown Funk certainly.
To be honest, Uptown Funk kind of does it more, but like, because it was the Trump election, but that feels like such a vague. And then you say Uptown Funk, I'm like, got it. I know where I was.
Locked in.
Locked in 2016.
Absolutely locked in. I remember when Uptown Funk first dropped with the music video before it became like, the one of the most popular songs of all time. I have to hear it at every single fucking wedding for the rest of our lives. But I remember when the music video first dropped, me and my girlfriend at the time, we were like, damn, this is really good. I'm like really into this. I'm
Bruno
definitely not gonna
Mars, yeah,
and Mark Ronson together. Wow,
together.
We're definitely not going to get sick of this.
I feel like Bruno Mars is sort of like the question of him is sort of like, how talented can an artist be and still not be good?
Wow.
Like a genuinely
yeah, truly, he's
he can
so
sing,
talented.
He can dance. He can write songs. Not good song, but he can do it all.
I mean, I do fuck with Bruno Mars on my.
It's not it's not the worst thing to hear when you're in the grocery store, but like.
No, for sure. And it'll be a tune that will come up and I'm just like humming it. Yeah. But no, for sure. What a talent, perhaps better utilized.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. It's like so much talent, but almost no personality or cultural
no
impression.
Vision, no point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And perhaps has one, but I think like so commercial, so capitalist, so like such a commodified, like such a commodity that it's like they're not fucking with what they got.
Like textbook pop music, just like pop music, photo of Bruno Mars in the dictionary. But this isn't a Bruno Mars podcast. Andy, we start off our movie conversations asking our guests, why did you pick this movie to talk about on this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked this movie when I first saw it. This was the second time watching it for me. I mean, obviously it has like the Communist Party and a major plot element, so I felt like that would be appropriate. But I also think it's like, I guess this is something we'll talk about, but I think it can be read as sort of an anti-capitalist film in some ways as well. Like it really depicts the kind of studio system as a sort of like ruthless machine and like a factory for creating these films that kind of doesn't particularly care about any of the kind of human effort that goes into them. Josh Brolin plays Eddie Mannix, who's this sort of like hyper competent fixer. But we never get any sense of like any real relationship between like him in the studio head, for example, who's like not pictured. He's in New York for the whole movie. So you get this sense of this kind of like impersonal capital kind of directing everything through the agency of like these, incredibly talented directors and actors and Josh Brolin. You don't get a sense of this being something that people are doing as like a labor of love or as trying to like make a particular point. Like it's like they're making the sausage and it's kind of showing you how the sausage is made. It's sort of like the point of view of the movie, I think. So it's interesting because like it certainly has like the depiction of the communists is like very satirical and I think pretty unfair. But like actually I think the movie ultimately doesn't have a super like nostalgic or reverential attitude towards old Hollywood. Like I think it depicts that as like a pretty cold-hearted, capitalist, profit-oriented system.
Yes.
I think the question of like, is it possible to do something meaningful within that structure is a question that the movie is interested in. But I think it sort of takes for granted that is the given circumstance of making movies in the 1950s and maybe even today,
Yeah, it was my first time seeing it. I loved it. And I think just to your point, it was so like, it's so spelled out, particularly clearly at the end in that great monologue by George Clooney's character, but that just like, this institution is a mechanism of capitalism. That's what the studio system is. Mm-hmm. That's its function. That's what we're here to do. All of you are commodities. And like the way he and we'll probably talk about it more later on, but just like the way he delivers that amazing speech, just like light bulb on, like, right. Oh, but of course, like this makes so much sense. Not even expecting that his boss, this fixer, has like no clue. Right. Like, oh, now that you know this, you'll understand, and we'll like it makes it's logical that we would sort of do something about it or change the system. Is delightful, but like, yeah, I was trying to think about other movies that make that statement so bluntly and so clearly. It was kind of like I was like, this is a case in which it should be like there should be no subtlety. Like this is say it out loud and proud in this like beautiful comedic. Like I thought seen a lot of Coen brother movies. Frank and I took a Coen brother class in college.
Oh, wow.
So
that is true. We did
see a lot of them and big fans. But this one I thought I think sometimes they can like when they're boring, they're real boring. Mm-hmm. And I got to be honest, I was like, Hail Caesar, just to me, my guess was like, this is going to be a real boring one. Yeah. And it was not. It's so good. It's so romp. Good.
Yeah.
It's a real romp.
It's one of like kind of up there with like some of my favorites of theirs, actually. I think there's so many delightful moments. But Frank, did you see this in 2016? Is this a first?
I did see this in and around 2016. I remember really liking it at the time. And I was saying with Andy before we started recording that this one has developed a bit of a cult following in terms of Coen's body of work.
That makes sense.
Like the real ones are like, but Hail Caesar, that's actually one of the very good ones. And I was very excited to revisit it and loved it even more on this second time around, especially now watching it through this lens, having now developed my own leftist politics at this point in my life. Yeah, it has so much to say about the old Hollywood studio system and just the absolutely viciously exploitative way in which it was run and managed. Not that it isn't still, in a lot of ways, very much like that, but in this particular period of time in the early 1950s, I did remember that the communists were the ones that kidnapped Baird Whitlock. So I was very excited to revisit that and be like, what is this depiction of these Hollywood writers who are also the communists, who are also the kidnappers? And Andy, I think you said it's like not a nice portrayal or an unfair portrayal.
Yeah.
It's definitely, they're going for the joke, but at the same time, I was like, this does kind of feel like a DSA meeting,
Yes, yeah. Like the satire is specific for sure.
Yes, it didn't feel like without merit. And while I think the Coens were taking the piss out of communist intellectuals, they are the story of this movie like reinforces everything that they are espousing. You know, like what we are watching Josh Brolin as a manager within this capitalist Hollywood studio enterprise, just maintain the grip of power of the studio ownership, of the head of the studio on all of these actors. And we don't really deal with with many tradesmen in this movie. It's pretty much all just like actors, writers, directors, but yeah, maintains this grip of power and treats them as the commodities that they are. And Riv, you mentioned that the speech that Clooney gives to him at the end where they finally find him and Clooney's like, you got to hear about this thing called capitalism and how we're all just kind of like functionaries within it. And then Brolin like slaps him very violently and just and puts it so plainly. He says, you are nothing but what you are worth to the studio. Just like putting it, like you're saying, in such plain terms. Yeah. So I love that. I feel like the movie got to have its cake and eat it too, in saying like, look at how silly these communists over here are, but also they're correct about everything that's happening.
The line that the communists say, so they kind of like explain communism to Baird Whitlock, and that scene is hilarious. And Baird is like trying to summarize, and he says, okay, so you guys are for the little guy. And the main guy who's explaining it to him says, well, for the little guy against, it doesn't matter. History will be what it will be. And we already know what it will be. But yes, we're for the little guy, aren't you? And that's great. Like, that is so funny.
Yeah. All of like history is science. If you know the science, and economics, you can predict where history will go. Yeah. All of that great stuff.
Yeah. Which then leads him to back it up in that, again, at the top of that speech that he gives to his boss at the end. He's like, those guys are really interesting. They have figured out like all the laws that dictate everything. History, sociology, politics, morality, everything. And it's all this book called Capital with a K. Mm-hmm. It's like, and it's kind of a great, like, going back to your point, Andy, about learning politics from art, right?
Yeah.
There are people you're probably hearing that and they're like, what, capital with a K? Like, is it? And I think it does a pretty good job at certain points of like explaining dialectics and like, yes, this is a viewpoint of how to analyze and see the world and understand our current context. And it is scientific. Like, Capital is a scientific book. It's a study on how capitalism works so that you can understand like, these aren't just random ideological laws put into place. Like, this is a very real system. And then they use that as a way in to just be like, and the studio is a part of it. And that's what we're here. Like, I also love that at the communist meeting, they're like, no, we're here to take some direct action. Like, we were trying, and I would love your thoughts on this, Andy. They're like, we were like trying to write. We wrote in a lot of stuff. Like, we were trying to like make shit happen by like getting our messages through our art. But like, we were reminded about praxis and like that we have to like really make shit happen. So we're going to try this. We're kidnapping you for ransom, which I love.
I want to read a little part of that because it really says,
please do.
Exactly what you're saying. So this same guy, Herman, he goes, now, until quite recently, our study group had a narrow focus. We concentrated on getting communist content into motion pictures, always in a sub-rosa way, of course, and we've been pretty darn successful. You remember in Kerner's Corner, the town hall scene, where the aldermen overturn the rotten election and make Gus the mayor? And Bear goes, oh, yeah, uh-huh. Herman goes, I like to think we've changed a few minds. It's so good. And then he explains that the thing that caused them to turn towards praxis was that Herbert Marcuse has been mentoring them about Marxism, which is like, I was the only one, but I did laugh out loud in the theater when that line happened. Because like, Marcuse is like a Frankfurt School guy who was like a big influence on the New Left, was like Angela Davis's dissertation advisor, I think. I know she studied with him.
Oh, okay.
And so like the Frankfurt School is like largely devoted to like explaining how capitalism replicates itself through the media. So like this specific critique, like when Barrett Whitlock is saying capital explains how, the movie system is just a tool of capitalism, it's like, well, not really. I mean, capital is mostly about like coats. you know, but like, but Herbert Marcuse's work really does. And like, you know, the rest of the Frankfurt people, you know, Adorno, Horkheimer, Benjamin, like they're very interested in the ways that capitalism is sort of like perpetuated through creating hegemony through, you know, things like motion pictures. I mean, they were hugely interested in the kind of propaganda value of movies. So like the fact that it's not generic Marxist professor, but like specifically Herbert Marcuse does kind of let me know like, okay, the Coen brothers like know what they're doing here. They're being a little glib in the critique of the communists, but like they've read this stuff. They know who they're citing and why.
Totally.
Sure.
And like you said, their perspective, I think they know they can get away with that because ultimately the morality is with the commies in this film, right? Like total, which so often doesn't happen. Like you think something like, feel like we've watched a lot of movies where we're like, the messaging is going to be, and then you're like, the morality itself shifts to a liberal or conservative perspective. And so, but this movie doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And also, I had to imagine was an easier sell to their actual studio that was financing this picture. You know, just like from a screenwriting production of, you know, hey, there's going to be a bunch of communists in this movie. In fact, they're going to play like a pivotal role. But don't worry, they're very silly and we will not take them seriously.
It's the weird thing where the communists in this movie are both more and less nefarious than the real life versions were.
Yeah. Yes.
Their attempts to like put leftist content in films is like very clearly mocked, but also like they have summoned a Soviet submarine off the coast of California to take a famous actor with them to Russia, which is like certainly nobody in the Hollywood 10 was doing that.
Definitely not. Yeah. They pulled off this kidnapping. Like they did a thing, you know, they're doing this direct action.
Okay. There is one thing I want to say about that, which I mean, the Coen Brothers movies, I feel like always have really kind of neat, clear symbolism. And the moment where, so they kidnap Baird Whitlock and they get, what is it, like $10,000 or $100,000 or something from the studio as his ransom. And then the screenwriters decide, no, we don't actually want this money. We want to donate this money to Russia. So as Channing Tatum's character is like on the ladder going into the submarine, they like toss him the briefcase and he fumbles it and drops the money into the water where it's lost forever, which I just feel like is like a great little sort of counterpoint to their inevitablist ideas about how history works, you know, that it's like, no, there are like people just fuck stuff up, you know, like people make accidents. This is not all mechanical. Like there's room within history for random chance, you know?
Can either of you explain why only Bert Gurney got to go onto the Russian submarine? Or the Soviet submarine? That was one part that was lost on me in terms of why the other Hollywood commies didn't also join him.
I got this, my interpretation was that because don't they say at the end, like, don't you want to stay with us here? Like they kind of felt they probably wouldn't send everyone because they still felt like they needed people in the, you know, breaking in, doing direct action in Hollywood, being part of this organization. That was my interpretation. What did you think, Andy?
I thought it was sort of just because like he's the famous one. So like if he defects, it's more of a propaganda coup than if like some random nerds defect.
And that as well, for sure. Yeah.
Who are like probably in the group theater in, 20 years earlier or whatever.
Also so funny that it's Channing Tatum, like of everyone to be the Soviet spy.
Perfect. I mean, I love Channing Tatum, but like, and I had seen this dance sequence before, but Gene Kelly was my like first crush ever. I like just die for Gene Kelly. And so then having like a hot ass Channing Tatum do this amazing like Gene Kelly rendition. Oh, it was so good.
It's also like the dance sequence is a song called No Dames, which is about, it's a group of sailors singing about how they're going to go sailing and they're going to not see any dames for 9 months or whatever. And then the joke is that you realize that they don't really mind, you know? Yeah. And I feel like this is about the latest point in sort of our culture where you could get away with that type of gay joke as straight filmmakers. Like I think probably people would be a little more upset about this today. But I love this sequence. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think politically it's really important because at least what I took from it was just this that everything there were so many artists in this system who were trying to say something in the guise of these like really oppressive structures, but do winks at the camp, but still find really creative artistic ways to, you know, make a whole sequence where you're like, this is about sort of like being gay and gaiety, and like there's something just really joyful about it. But that's like if you get it, you get it. If you're in, you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not, like, you don't know, and you just think this is about dames, you know, about and it like, yeah, it was so amazing to see all the men just like dancing together and like owning that. So I felt like there was just, again, another way that in Hollywood at the time, and I feel like Hollywood now too, people are going to have to find more and more. There's how artists would sort of like find their own moments of freedom under these really oppressive Hollywood systems.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't if there's, you know, a queer critique of the sequence that's, you know, that takes issues with part of it. Absolutely, I completely understand it, but it didn't feel judgmental in the sequence. It felt like fun and celebratory and tongue in cheek and sort of like winking. And also, if anything, it's, you know, it's of a time, because this isn't just 2016. This is, you know, them hearkening back to an earlier era of Hollywood showmanship.
Well, it goes back to the form, right? Like the fact that Channing Tatum's character is the moral compass. Like we're cheering for him, and we kind of know like he's sort of a hero, and like we understand the moral compass of the movie is the oppressed and not the oppressor. I think that sort of helps us understand how to view that sequence.
Yeah,
where potentially in a different form, it would be offensive and weird, you know, and like, why are the Coen brothers doing this? Because they just want to make a gay joke, you know. And it felt contextualized.
It's also just like the fact that the choreography is so astonishing, I feel like helps to make you feel like, oh, they're not just going for the gag here. Like they also want to create a brilliant like Busby Berkeley dance sequence.
Yeah. And so many of those, you watch those old pictures and you're like, so many of them have this like, they're not, they like think they're so hetero and they're not, you know, and that's why they're so good.
Yeah.
Like that's I felt like that was part of the joke too, was like, it's not what they think it is.
Also a sad reminder of how few performers we have today who can do all of that.
Well, we have Channing.
No, but we have Channing. This used to be like the triple threat that used to be like standard. You know, you had to be, and now, yeah, it's just like bygone skills that are no longer as much utilized today.
Is this before La La Land? When was La La Land?
Great question. La La Land was also 2016, so this is the same year.
Interesting.
I feel like that's like to me, like the bad version of this type of like throwback thing, because like they just don't have it. You know, and you clearly, you watch this movie and you're like, well, they should have just cast Channing Tatum and have him tap dance all over the Griffith Park, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You can't just turn Ryan Gosling into, you know, although I guess he was in the Mickey Mouse Club. He was a song and dance man.
He's pretty good. I mean, my issue with that movie is more just like that movie.
Right.
Sure.
Another thing that I think like so on the nose kind of sets the politics of this film in place is that the job offer that Eddie Minix receives is from Lockheed Corporation.
Yeah.
And we know, and it's just like so resonant now.
Yep.
No, you know, that we're constantly thinking about Lockheed Martin, but like pretty kind of brave to put that in, I feel like, in 2016.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's the evil guy.
And the pitch is sort of like, don't do something frivolous like make movies, do something meaningful like make atomic bombs.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah, help build arms that will vaporize entire countries. This is the safe American thing to come and do.
And the fact that they're like, the skill set that you have working in this movie industry, completely like we could use that over here. It's like the same deal, right? Like that's why we're going after you. Again, doesn't back away at all from what it's saying about the studio system and all of that.
I do kind of like, I've always felt like stage managers could like be generals with very little retraining. And I feel like that's sort of what's going on here a little bit.
Totally.
There definitely is something about like, if you've been a producer, like, because I believe Brolin's or Mannix's actual title at Capitol Studios or Capitol Pictures is the head of physical production. There's something true about that. If you've like been a producer, if you've been like a line producer on a movie set, like that is a level of management and multitasking and organization that is like that. It doesn't get much more complicated than that in other fields. I mean, I'm sure like rocket scientists would disagree with that, but yeah, it's a pretty like transferable skill. I loved how they portrayed Brolin as, I think, Andy, you might have said it, hyper competent. Like he's just able to accomplish everything and anything, between like literally showing up at someone's house at 5 a.m. to retrieve like a starlet who's at an unauthorized photo shoot, to like solving a dozen production fiascos just in a walk and talk with his secretary, all in like a matter of 3 minutes. It's like it's completely unrealistic, but also like it's such great characterization for this person who has just been completely subsumed by his role at this studio.
And it's pretty much all one day, right? I think it's like, I think we get a little bit of the next day, but I think it's sort of like night to night of one day is most of it.
I think that's right, yeah.
So it's really like, you know, and you don't get the sense that this is like an exceptional day. It's sort of like this is what his job is.
Yeah, he's like Ray Donovan.
He is. And I also learned in researching that Henry Mannix was a real person, was a real Hollywood fixer that they sort of transposed this story onto. I want to talk a little bit about Brolin's character. Like, what did you both make of the fact that, I don't know, clearly this job is eating him up on the inside. He doesn't get to see his family at all. He's like, his misery is manifesting in a bunch of ways. The main of which we see him in confession a few times, but he's still at the end of the day is like, I want to do this, as opposed to go be an arms manufacturer. Although I don't think it's like a moral thing or an ethical thing. He just loves working in the movies. Is it really just, do you think it just boils down to like, oh, there's no business like show business? Is it that simple? No, truly, like, is it the glamour? Is it the status? Is it the power that he gets to wield? Like, why do you think he ultimately decided to stay in the movie business? He
talks about that to the priest, where he says, if there's something that's easy, is that wrong? And the priest goes, easy? And he goes, easy to do, an easy job, not a bad job. It's not bad, but there's another job that's not so easy. In fact, it's hard. It's so hard, Father. Sometimes I don't know if I can keep doing it, but it seems right. I don't know how to explain. And I feel like that's sort of like it. Like he just has this sort of like work ethic of like, if you're doing something that is requiring sort of everything of you, that is sort of inherently meaningful. And he's not at all tempted by the idea of like taking it easy, or maybe he's slightly tempted, but ultimately he decides like, I don't want a 9-to-5. I want this job that is like all consuming.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Andy, because that is such a capitalist like viewpoint and tenet. Like a tenet of capitalism is like who you are and your morality as a human depends on like how much you work for capital and how good you are at that, no matter how hard. And then you get addicted to that idea. And I think the framing of this film by the priest and the fact that he's going to confession at the top and at the end is intentional and important, especially because they're talking so much about capital, and capital talks a lot about the use of religion and ideology and its role in sort of keeping these capitalist ideas in place for the workers inside of them, and kind of keeping that role of like ideological morality, which we see him so stuck in. And in some ways, like all of the characteristics you were describing, Frank, I'm like, he's the one who the communists should have tried to like capture. Like he's got the skill set that they really need. Like he's got some tools that we could really use in class warfare, and potentially like we see his misery, as you were pointing out, so he's ripe for sort of like having that awakening, but he's so deep in it. He's like, I think gaining so much as like a higher up authority, a manager figure, but he's not benefiting. You know, no one really benefits under capitalism except for maybe the capitalist who we know as a human being doesn't benefit. So I think that's kind of like, to me, that was sort of the role he played. Like, I do think for him, it is like there's no business like show business. And I think that's interesting because us as theater workers and filmmakers and actors, that's like so often how we get wrapped into it is like I don't, and I've been hearing it a lot echoed. I've been thinking about it a lot as like my capitalist study group has moved into our direct action, which we're making a piece of theater together. And that's been something we've talked about is like wanting to explore those themes of what keeps the artist inside the system. And it's a huge one where you hear actors all the time be like, yeah, but this isn't work. I heard, oh God, who was it the other day? There was like a clip on TikTok, Instagram. It was some fucking actor who was just like, they gave it to the guy who, he was talking about some job and he's like, yeah, well, he would do it. He said no to the job because it was like, he wanted like, basically wanted a living wage. Like he wanted to be paid what he's worth. He's like, and I took it because I fucking love what I do. I don't need like basically like I don't fucking need to be paid. And you know what? And now I'm a big star. Da 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 da. Like that was like the messaging, and everyone's like, yeah, like that's so fucked up. But I think that like I love show business, so I'll put up with anything. Kind of is the point. Is like yes, that's the point of his character.
And it's clearly like eating him up inside to an extent. Like he's not happy with
Definitely.
that. He can tell that there's something wrong. You know, I mean, I love this line where he goes to confess and the priest says, how long since your last confession? And he says, 27 hours. And the priest goes, it's too often, my son. You know?
That was also my take, that he is deriving his own personal value and self-worth from the value and status he is able to like garner from his role within this studio system, whether that is either wielding power over other people or delivering the most valuable product to his bosses and then in turn the shareholders. And he understands that role. He feels comfortable as much as it is eating him alive. He feels comfortable in it. He is clearly good at it. Yeah. So to give that up to something unknown is probably just not where he might not have as much power or get to derive as much self-worth from his role is scary to him. Also, I do think that is a little bit of like, there is no business like show business, you know? I remember when I moved to LA and I just like 22 and you're starting to go out and meet other people who just got out of college and, you know, and I remember meeting a lot of, you know, younger people that were like working at like the agencies or like the studios or the production companies or whatever, mostly agencies. And the thing that I learned pretty quickly was like, oh, these are all just dudes, mostly dudes from like University of Indiana Business School who just like thought Hollywood was cooler than Wall Street. Like literally, that was it.
Wow.
It's just like, you know, like I have a business degree. I want to make money. Hollywood is cool. Wall Street is not cool. So I'm going to go work in Hollywood. And like, these are the people who go on to become top agents or top executives or whatever. And obviously they're not all like that. There are some like diehard, you know, movie, film, art fans, but a lot of them are just people who are like, I don't know, this just seems like a cool business. I get to like meet famous people sometimes.
Well, and that's one thing about Eddie too, is like, for all of his like admirable qualities, he doesn't seem to be somebody who cares about movies or likes movies or has interesting thoughts about movies.
No, definitely not.
Like he's doing a job and he can make sure that like that, you know, that like the movie is done when it's supposed to be done and it's under budget and, you know, the stars aren't getting in the tabloids. But he's not an artist.
No, he's a bag man. He's like, yeah, he's a numbers guy. He's a taskmaster.
Yeah.
He's just keeping everyone in line. And those are some of like it's played for laughs, but some of like the strongest stuff in the movie is just like Eddie telling the actors, directors, whatever, just like, this is what you're going to do. And this is how it's going to work now. Like telling Hobie like, hey, you're going out on a date with Carlotta tonight. This is your date. This is who you're taking. You're going to run into the press over here. Making Lawrence cast Hobie to begin with.
That's my favorite sequence of the whole film.
God.
I think
it's so funny.
so brilliant. It's so brilliant.
So fucking good. That was the one that I remembered from whenever I first saw it. Just
Such an homage to like Singing in the Rain and the talkie part, and like it was just it, but it was so well done. And Ray Fiennes is so, I mean, them together. It's like that was like a yeah.
Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple. Yeah, that.
Simple. A lot of times,
Well,
like this Alden Ehrenreich. I hope they put this kid in more pictures.
The fact that too that the director's name is Lawrence Lawrence, and they chamber until the next scene the fact that all of his movies have the title card Lawrence Lawrence Presents, which is so funny.
Really, yeah. The Coen brothers at their best.
I love the silly name.
Which kind of, again, we can't deny, like it's 2016, and I mean, obviously it comes out in 2016, but the Trump, like the political time, I'm sure this is, I like to think in some ways this is their like, fuck you, but it comes out in such a fucking smart.
Yeah.
And the fact that they choose to like make a film about the role of capitalism so clearly, and in Hollywood, but capital, like really to me was just like about industry, because it didn't feel like sometimes you see movies about capitalism in Hollywood that are like, well, this is a Hollywood thing and we're not naming capitalism, but they just name it so much. I mean, they fucking talk about capital very clearly.
It's called Capitol Pictures. The studio's Capitol Pictures.
Yeah.
Like that's
nuts. Yeah. It feels like they're talking about the political moment as is, just like reminding us like, hey, there's also this way to view what's happening.
We got to get the Coen brothers on the pod.
That would be fucking awesome.
If anyone knows Joel and Ethan Coen, please shoot us an email
both.
at
We'll take one.
moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
Yeah.
The other big theme that I wanted to talk about is, and Riv, you touched on it, but like the role of religion in this movie, and then also the way that religion is used to uphold these systems, in this case, this like the economics of this studio system, really smartly laid throughout the whole thing. We've got like Hail Caesar is is the movie that's being produced, which is a Christ story. I believe that's the a story of the Christ. I think is the subtitle. A story of the Christ, yeah. Set, but following a Roman tribune played by Baird Whitlock. So there's that. Go ahead. It's Ben-Hur is what is like clearly the yeah. But then like on top of that, we have one of my favorite scenes was Eddie meeting with the 4 religious heads. There's like one Catholic, like one Eastern Orthodox, one Protestant, and then a Jewish rabbi. Exactly. I loved all of that stuff, and just how like the getting the buy-in from these religious sects, yeah, to basically not only validate the movie's production, but also promote it, I thought was so smart. Yeah. And just like, but ultimately how hollow the production of Hail Caesar itself was. Like, we didn't actually learn anything at all what it had to say about the Christ's story or anything. He asks them if they have any thoughts about the way that like those sort of religious significance of the movie. And the first response is the Eastern Orthodox guy goes, "I thought the chariot scene was fakey." Which is so funny. So good. They're just giving script notes. My favorite at the end is like after the rabbi has the most opinions, he's like, "Well, what do you think?" And he's like, I haven't an opinion. So good. The rabbi character is so good. He says, "God has children? What, and a dog? A collie maybe? God doesn't have children. He's a bachelor and very angry." And then the priest goes, "He used to be angry." And the rabbi said, "What, he got over it?" Yeah, I mean, I think the like on the nose take of it is like they're just kind of they're talking about like these religious figures as screenwriters, really. Like religion is screenwriting, and and it's screenwriting in service of capital. The humor in this scene is like of very much the same kind of humor as the humor in the scene where the communists are explaining capital. It's like these petty differences that don't seem at all significant to anybody not totally in this world. Oh, this is another. I wrote down so many lines from this scene because it's maybe my favorite scene in the movie, where the minister is yelling at the rabbi and he goes, "You worship the God of another age." And the priest says, "Who has no love?" And the rabbi goes, "Not true. He likes Jews." All of that was so good. I also I loved how the movie was just, gesturing towards religion as this thing that we can either like rely upon or lean against in times where, I don't know, you're trying to like substantiate either the work you're doing, or in Eddie's case, absolve himself of the whatever crimes he has committed. And just how, especially at this time, and I guess it persists to today, where just I don't know, having some sort of like vague religious gesturing is enough to assuage the concerns of people who, I don't know, do evil shit like run a movie studio system like this, or I don't know, half of the people in the Trump administration who are all like, you know, whatever, devout Christians in scare quotes.
One of the things that I think is so funny and effective about this movie too is like, it really depicts the job of making a movie as just putting out a series of fires. Like, it's just anything that could be offensive. Like, he's not asking for their like opinion about whether the movie is good. He's just like, is this going to be a problem for us? No? Okay, then we're good. You know? And like, I think that's such a true statement about like how art is made under capitalism, that like, it's not like the best idea wins. It's just sort of like the least objectionable idea. And like, that's how you end up with like, I don't know, a gritty reboot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like whatever the thing that pisses off the least amount of people.
Yeah.
Will be our creative choice.
And everything's just kind of fine. Like, I felt like this movie could have been made about like Netflix very easily. That it's like, yeah, it all kind of works, you know? None of it's really that good, but it's not that bad either, you know?
And it should be noted that like all of the movies that we see produced in the movie of Hail Caesar, other than the Channing Tatum dance sequence, all look like pretty mid.
Yeah.
They like none of these movies look very good. You know, like the production quality is good, but none of the stories, none of the writing. Definitely, you know, Hobie starring in, what's the name of that movie? Like,
gosh, what is it called? I don't remember.
Tonight We Dance or
Tonight We
something
Dance,
like that.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, like none of that looks like good filmmaking or art or stuff that is going to like stand the test of time.
Yeah, they're not making Olive Out Eve today. They're not making
Right.
Something Like It Hot. Because I think that's the thing is like we only watch the like best whatever 10% of movies from the 50s or 40s or 30s. So like I feel like we often think like movies were so good back then, but there were like plenty of dog shit movies made by the studio system.
Absolutely, yeah. Every year has like you're saying 90-80% of the movies just like fall away to time.
Well, and when you're under contract and you're being literally treated, I mean, it's like more deceptive now because there's less like you're under contract to a studio, but like how clearly actors were just like, I'm a playing card and like maybe they'll trade me, put me on another team, but I'll just do what they say. This isn't about me like picking something that's challenging me or that I love to play.
I feel like with like the rise of franchises being 90% of movies, I think they were kind of back to that old studio system in some ways. Like
totally.
Marvel owns all of those actors, you know, in a very similar way to what we see in this movie.
And just the last point on like the religious figures, it's like, and that scene, it kind of just makes me think about just how there's always like the political correctness, the wokeness, like that's what's going to be like stop us from like making great things or like saying freedom of speech, what we want to say. And you're like, yeah, well, religion has been like the ultimate political correct, like the ones to like stop any freedom of speech from the beginning, who's like, you can't say that, that's morally offensive. And they've been bringing them in as a way to, so they're the original.
Yeah, they're only against censorship when they don't get to be the ones deciding what gets censored.
Did either of you have anything you wanted to hit before we go to the awards?
One thing I want to say about it, because I just think it's a persistent problem with the Coen brothers, but especially egregious in this movie that has 500 people in it. This is such a white movie. Like, it is astonishingly white. Like, I don't even think it's like accurate to the studio system of the time. Like, we don't even get like Sam, the piano player in Casablanca. There's no character like that even, of like a walk-on role from a black guy who's funny or whatever. Like, it's the amount of whiteness in this movie is wild. There's
one Latina.
Yeah, we have one Latina.
Dates.
We have the people who run the Chinese restaurant.
And considering how many plot lines that they do tackle, it's not like they're like, well, we're really talking about one thing. I mean, they have like so many different plot lines. They could have
it's wild.
Devoted one.
I don't even think any of the sailors in the No Dames sequence are black or non-white, at least not obviously. It's sort of astonishing how Caucasian this film is.
Yeah, like they're like exactly rewriting it to be like, because Hollywood was just Caucasian. That's how it was. And like you said, we know that's not true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Andy, this is the point in the episode where we like to give awards to this movie, to any movie that we're talking about, and we'll probably unearth some other things in this part of the conversation. So we have 3 awards that we give to each movie. Our first award is the Best Politics Award. So this goes to the character with the best politics in the movie. This, we don't often have avowed communists in the movies that we're talking about. So this is actually a pretty
Tricky,
exciting
yeah.
one. Yeah. Could go to Herbert Marcuse, as you mentioned.
Sure.
Probably one of the most learned communists at the communist reading group.
I think I would give it to Baird Whitlock as a sort of most improved. You know, he really becomes fully commie-pilled in a 24-hour period. You know, it takes most of us much longer than that.
He does,
That's
but
true.
he gets. I would assume he's being. I mean, I guess we don't know what happens with him, but I'm assuming he's slapped right back into place.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to follow up with that character. 10 years.
Yeah,
down the road.
totally. I'm with you, Frank. Yeah, we have to, just because it's so rare that we get to give this award to someone with actual real politics.
Yeah, so someone espousing a concrete politic. Yeah.
And particularly because he's the one who's like, no, we're gonna take this study group and we're taking action. We're doing something. No more just trying to Trojan horse this into our screenplays.
All right, and our next award is Worst Politics. Goes to the character with the worst politics in the movie. So this will be a little more of a robust debate.
I mean, definitely got to put up our dude from Lockheed.
Yeah.
Lockheed at the time, eventually Lockheed Martin. I mean, gotta
Sure.
really represents, I think, the most evil capitalist of them all.
I knew a guy, my freshman year of college, I dated somebody whose roommate was dating somebody whose like a career aspiration, like when he went into college being like, this is what I'm trying to do, is he wanted to be a defense marketing consultant. And I was just like, what
how
an
do you get there?
incredibly evil string of words.
Yeah. Especially
say
at
out
age
loud?
18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
You're like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, that's the height of his youthful idealism, defense marketing consultant. And it's like if you love the military, like you could be in the military, but he was like, no, I'm going to make other people fight wars.
Even Elon Musk knows better than to be like, yeah, I make all my money like with my Lockheed Martin deals and like with weapons. He's like, no, it's the Tesla.
I'm saving the world.
That's wild to just like put that out there as your grand ambition.
Yeah, that guy sucked.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe it's the Lockheed Martin
I think it's
guy.
gotta
I mean,
be.
Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eddie sucks, but Eddie is. I think Eddie, like we've talked about extensively, is so clearly like a man, and he doesn't have good politics, but he's just not. He's not the guy at the top.
No, he's also like somewhat a victim of this system, as much as he is also perpetuating it. Yeah. If the Lockheed guy was like, we're doing cool aviation stuff, we could let him slide, but he is very clearly like, look at this sick bomb we just made. So, yeah. All right.
Okay, our last award is Best Supporting. This goes to the character that we think this movie should actually be about, like a supporting character we want to see more about, or an alternative story, like spin-off, something we want to dig deeper into.
My God, I could just spend so much more time on the set of Merrily We Dance or whatever the fuck. Of Lawrence Lawrence and Hobie going back. Just give me the whole production of that movie, please.
I felt like there was a lost opportunity with the Deanna Moran, Scarlett Johansson's character. Like I thought she was so fascinating and they just like left it. Maybe it's because they were just trying to. I'm like, why couldn't they tie into the sex politics into the capitalism of it all better?
Yeah.
Like it was there, but it was sort of like left, and she seemed to just be fine to go along with it. Like, I don't know. I thought they were going to give her more defiance, more to push against. They kind of left her sort of like unnecessarily dumb and willing.
I can't decide what I think of Scarlett Johansson's performance in this. Like, watching it, I was like, it's kind of bad, but she also seems to clearly be like doing a funny voice on purpose.
I also couldn't tell, and I just think I think it was like, it's hard because they like tease out like there's gonna be a big storyline, and then there's not. You're just like, oh, she's cool with just like putting her child up for adoption to get it there. She's just like totally cool with this plot. And we know, again, like that there were no female storylines that really represented, like there was no Marilyn Monroe who you're like, yeah, she's stuck in this system, but she's a brilliant fucking artist. I was surprised by that. So I would want to explore that more.
Another person I'd want to see more of is Jonah Hill's character, Joseph Silverman, who's the like person that the studio goes to when they need just a person to lend their identity to one of their crimes. And like,
Yes.
because he's going to adopt Scarlett Johansson's baby so that she can adopt it back, so that then they can tell the world that she's adopted this baby and wasn't pregnant. But
Yes.
they give like a brief list of like all the other ways he's lent his identity to the studio, and I'm like, every one of those is a movie.
Yeah, that was I definitely wanted more. What did they say? Like he meets the legal standard of person.
Yeah.
Yeah, all which I'm sure existed or still exists. And he's also a notary, which is important.
I love this part where, you know, they're talking about how they transferred the title of a car to Joe, and then he spent 6 months in LA County Jail because he hit a pedestrian. He hit a pedestrian, but it wasn't actually him. And Deanna goes, "But you're off the sauce now?" And he goes, "I never touch it, miss. It was a legal fiction." I love that.
Such a good screenplay. It's like, yeah, one of their best.
And dense. Whoever said dense. I did like by the end of watching it, I was like, I need to watch this again. I'm sure there's stuff that I missed. This is a jam-packed story.
It is, yeah. Their love of Preston Sturges, which is in certainly in all of their comedies, is like so strong in this. Like the dialogue is very much that screwball back and forth, you know, super dense jokes.
Nice work, Coens. Nice work. Andy, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for choosing this movie for us to chat about. But before we wrap, the last thing we like to do with our guests is ask how, as artists and people, we strive to practice our values in our own lives with all of its complexities and contradictions. So is there one thing that you do in your everyday life where you get the chance to practice your anti-capitalist values? And that could be anything from like an organization you work with to like a daily practice you engage in.
Yeah, I feel like I've been bad at doing concrete practice more recently. I want to get more like back into it and do some more canvassing and stuff. I canvass with DSA pretty regularly, but it's been a little while since I've done that. But one thing that I have done recently that you know, didn't change the world at all, but was nice for me, was I was in two different DSA reading groups. One, we were reading Capital Volume 1, and the other one we were reading Germinal by Emile Zola. And I think these two books pair really well together because Germinal is like a novel about French miners in the mid-19th century. And like the First International is like a major plot element in that. Like the union
cool.
like sends a representative to the First International to like get advice about how to be on strike. It's kind of incredible. And like they discuss, the characters discuss Marx and Marxism and like, you know, the various different forms of 19th century leftist analysis that are available to them. And this is all like during Marx's lifetime. So it's kind of incredible that this major novelist is like engaging with his work in such a serious way. But also the characters are just incredibly rich. And I mean, it's a hard read. Like it's really brutal. It did not make me want to become a 19th century coal miner. I will tell you that for sure. But it really kind of put some kind of flesh on the bones in a way. There are parts of Capital itself that are quite, you know, emotional and moving, but there's also like a lot of stuff where it's like diagrams, you know? So I think reading Capital while also reading like a novel that's kind of, you know, there are times when it kind of reads like a sort of narrative treatment of the major themes of Capital. So those two books, I think, pair really well together. When you get sick of one, like when Germinal becomes too brutal, switch to Capital. When Capital becomes too boring, switch to Germinal. Both great books. I never want to read either of them again, but I'm glad that I read them both once.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Andy, for sharing that.
Andy, it was so lovely meeting you. Where can our audience find you and your work? And support, maybe come see a play of yours the next time it gets put up.
Yeah, I tend to post when I do theater stuff on my Instagram, which is at Andy J. Boyd. I also have a couple of plays published. Occupy Prescott is my most recent, and also The Trade Federation are both published by No Passport Press. You can find those on various online retailers, but including bookshop.org. So if you're going to buy one of those, please do it on there. And then, I'm doing stuff. I feel like I'm kind of at I have a long development cycle traditionally, and in the last couple of years, I produced 2 different shows. So I kind of am on the early stage of a couple things. So I think it'll probably be a little while until I have something up again. But, in the meantime, I got plays you can read. I will have performed some labor songs at an evening of short documentaries about the labor movement as part of Brick
Amazing.
Flicks. So that's already happened. And it went really well, and everyone liked it.
It was a raving success. Amazing. Well, Andy, thank you again. It was so lovely meeting you.
Yeah, this was great. Let's talk soon.
Talk soon.
To get ourselves a treat.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And if you want to support the show and get access to our Patreon episodes, that link is in the episode description in your podcast player, or you can find it at mvcpod.com.
Also a reminder, we donate our ad space, so if you're part of a leftist or progressive organization and you would like to run an ad on this program, please email us at moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
For next week, we will be watching the 2014 horror movie, It Follows.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.